Hello and welcome everyone to today's panel discussion on intersectional allyship. Chris Hyams, hopefully you all know me. I am super excited to be here today. The purpose of today's panel is to dig deeper into the topic of intersectional allyship. And we're going to hear about our panelists' real life experiences through the perspective of being part of the Lgbtqia+ community. The members who identify as part of the community on this panel will talk primarily about their personal experiences, allies who've advocated for them, and instances where they wished they'd had the support of allies. The allies will talk primarily about what has shaped their thinking, ways they have advocated, and the challenges that they have faced. We have some questions prepared, but we'll also open it up to questions from the audience about halfway through. So I'm very excited to be here with our four panelists today. We have Shannon Banks, who is a senior account executive and iPride co-chair for the Americas out of our New York office. Olivia Fromm, who is a senior client success specialist for Enterprise and the iPride co-chair in EMEA out of London. Riker Knapp, senior specialist, learning and development, and member of the GNC NB working group, Americas out of Scottsdale. And Talia Van Jones, program manager, training and development, and the co-chair of the Vets and Allies IRG for the Americas. So we're gonna start out with the first question that everyone, including myself, is gonna answer. And the first question is, what are your own identities, privileges, and positions of power in relation to the Lgbtqia+ community? So I will kick things off. Mine is pretty straightforward. I am straight, white, cisgendered, able-bodied male. I am a third-generation American, so have not faced any of the things that immigrants to this nation have faced. I grew up with access to an elite private school education all the way up through graduate school. I have never had to face any type of severe economic insecurity. And my position of power and privilege stems from all of this. Also in my personal case, this is a lot more than just theoretically understanding that I have these privileges and other people don't. As a young man, I was arrested. And in the decades since then, I have gotten to know many people from the same offense as myself who have spent decades in prison. And I know without a doubt that the reason that I'm sitting here today is because of my privilege. Also, the last thing I'll say is that I am the father of a queer daughter and I am an ally. So with that, I will pass it along to our next panelist.
Thank you so much for that, Chris. Thank you so much for that, Chris, and thank you all for having us here. Thank you, everyone. My name is Shannon Banks. My pronouns are he and him. I'm a Black, gay, cisgender male. My places of privilege and positions of power really stem from being a cisgender male and having access to a college education. That simply means that I've had access to resources in life, such as basic health care and access to jobs that many people in our community do not have. I've never had to worry about basic physicals annually, and I've never had to worry about whether or not I could land a job. And things simply in our community like PrEP and PEP have always been readily available to me.
Thanks, Shannon. I'm Riker Knapp. My identities are white, hetero-flexible, and I am a transgender man. Oftentimes, we use the acronym AFAB to help people understand trans identities. So AFAB stands for assigned female at birth. My pronouns, as you can see right here, are he, him, but I'm always down for a good hey girl whenever I meet someone new. But within my identities, I actually do sit at quite a high level of privilege. What this means is I like to explain it from the outside looking in. So when someone's walking down the street and they see me, they see a white man. I am very male passing. That is a privilege that I have within my trans identity, and of course being white. I have the ability to hide when I need safety, and I have the ability to choose when I want to be visible. I also have access to safe, affordable trans healthcare. Most trans individuals do not have this. It's very common that this is not something that's readily available to trans individuals. And I've had the luxury and the privilege of having this, working for incredible companies like Indeed. With these advantages and privileges, it's made my journey as a trans man significantly easier than others. As we talk later, I will discuss more about what that looks like and what that sounds like, but I'm excited to be here.
Thanks, Riker. So I'm Olivia Fromm. I go by pronouns she, her. I'm white. I am fluid or queer. I'm female. I come from a Jewish heritage. My grandparents are Holocaust survivors. And my places of privilege really stem from being white, college educated, with a good socioeconomic status. But people see me certain way because I do pass as a straight white girl. But when it really gets to the core of who I am, it's never felt like how I identify. I was born and raised here in London, and I spent 18 years in the US, so I do come with an American accent, but I would definitely say I'm cross-continentally cultural.
I guess that leaves me. My name is Talia Van Jones. I am a Hispanic, heterosexual, cisgendered female. My pronouns are she and her. I'm also a military spouse, and that's something that I wanted to highlight, especially being on this panel. We're going to talk a lot about today the military community supporting our LGBTQIA+ community. But my places of privilege and power really stem from looking white on the outsides, as Riker said, just from looking at me, I look white. I am college educated. I grew up having high access to a great education, healthcare, and I'm just really excited to be an ally and here with everyone today.
Great. Well, thank you everyone for being here. Also, I apologize. I left my pronouns out, but like Riker, they're right down there. My pronouns are he and him. So let's start off, and we'll go around the entire group here and start first with, I'd love to have you talk about a time when you either had the support or wished you had the support of an ally, and what that interaction was like and what the impact was like for you.
All right, thanks, Chris. So I like to share examples that are best practices that people can kind of learn through example. So I'm going to share my coming out story when I came out in the workplace. So this is about 6 years ago. I worked at a different company, but very similar. And I came into the point in my journey where changes were starting to happen and I needed to come out. Of course, I'm in Scottsdale, so I'm in the state of Arizona, and up until recently, we were a state that you could be fired for being LGBT. So I got the gumption, and I went to my manager at the time, and I sat her down, and I said, "Hey, Julie, do you know what transgender is?" And she goes, "Yeah, kind of." And I said, "Cool. I am, and I'm going to be transitioning to male. My pronouns are going to be he, him, and I'm going to be going by Riker." And we both just kind of sat there and stared at each other because I just basically vomited on her. And we stared at each other. And I mean, I had all these thoughts, right? And in my mind, I'm like, I'm for sure getting fired. Like, this is not going to go well. Like, she has every right and she doesn't have to say why I got fired, right? The state's protecting her. And so she sat there in silence. And then Julie did something that is the true definition of empathy. She found something within herself that she could identify that reflected the experience that I was having, where she could sit there, and her response was, she shared her personal experience and said, "Riker, if I've learned anything in life, is you have to be authentic with who you are, no matter the repercussions and no matter who stands behind you. Because at the end of the day, at night, you go to bed with yourself and you need to love yourself and be happy with yourself." And then we cried and she went and got us some tissues. And then she said, if it's okay with you, I'd like to contact HR, find out what resources you have, and I'll be back with you by the end of the day. And I said, that sounds great. Awesome. She kept her word. She came back to me and she provided me with all the medical resources, everything that I had readily available to me with the company. And then she asked me, "How do you want to come out?" And I was like, "I didn't get that far. I told you." And she was like, "Well, let's talk about it." So we decided that it would be a good idea for me to share with like my other team leads within my department, within a meeting, and then go to each one of their huddles and talk to their teams about my pronouns changing and all of that. The big thing that Julie did, and this is where I think when people go from being an ally to being an accomplice, is when Julie went, it was over the span of 2 days. She went to 16 different huddles with me, stood next to me every single time I came out. At the end of the huddle, after like, you know, I'm like all shaky, I'm like, oh, I just stared at 25 people and told them something terrifying. And stared at all their faces and reactions. She would pull me into a room and she would check in and say, how are you feeling? What do you need? Julie really was the key point of where I found my individual power as a trans person in the workplace. I share this example because as leaders who are listening, these things will happen. You will have people who come to you and say that, hey, I didn't tell, you know, on my application, but I'm non-binary, my pronouns are they, them. These conversations will happen. The more power you have to support and be alongside folks like that, the better their life and their whole journey is gonna be. That's my story.
Riker, that's a tough one to follow. Round of applause for that. Thank you for sharing. So I'm gonna answer this question from the perspective of where I wish more allies had stood up. So again, I'm representing kind of the military lens as a military spouse. So for those that don't know, in the United States, as of last year, they reinstated a transgender ban. So what that means is that the United States will not accept or allow any transgender individual to serve at any capacity in the US military. And this follows in 2011, there was a ban that was lifted. There was a don't ask, don't tell policy, which is if you were part of the LGBTQ community, you don't tell, no one will ask. This is a very deep rooted culture in our military. And so coming from, you know, a spouse perspective, I ask my husband all the time who served in the Army, does it matter the person next to you, if they're strapping up their boots and they're going to go do the same thing that you are, does it matter what their orientation is? Or he's like, I don't care. He's like, as long as they protect me, I'm going to protect them. It didn't matter. But again, this was, you know, a culture that's deep rooted in our military. And it's really unfortunate that this community has to face that. And, you know, for me, coming in as a spouse, I try and push for my husband and our family to be allies however we could. So when this ban was reinstated last year, we started to get involved with a lot more organizations that support the community. And specifically, there's one that I just want to shout out. They're called SPART-A. So they stand for Service Members, Partners, Allies for Respect and Tolerance for All. And this is a great community that really, again, is promoting allyship for the LGBTQ community within the military. So for me, it's, you know, I wish there were more allies that would feel comfortable standing up. The military is like any other company, right? So sometimes they're going to make decisions and commands that are viewed as wonderful and supportive, and sometimes they're going to make some decisions that aren't the best in the eyes of the workers. And, you know, what happens sometimes with these decisions is there's a lot of effects. So with Don't Ask, Don't Tell, the military lost a lot of talented people. They were losing, you know, Arabic linguists, they were losing fighter pilots, they were losing, you know, jobs that they had to spend a lot of money to replace. And job performance for those that were gay and chose to stay in the military, you know, went down because they had to hide who they were. So for me, you know, I wish there were just more people that would feel comfortable standing up. I wish we had allies that, you know, felt as comfortable as myself or my husband that said, hey, it doesn't matter, like you're going to do the same job that I am and we're going to do it well, we're going to do it together. So that's my piece.
Thank you, Riker. Thank you, Talia, for both sharing. So the question was, talk about a time where you wish you had the support. So I'll tell you a personal story that I haven't shared with many people, but picture it, 2009, 2010, East Atlanta Village. My cousin and I, we venture out to a nightclub, we dance, we have a great time. Many of you all on the panel here viewing know me. You know I'm known for my twerking, and I love to dance. My cousin, who is a Black cisgender male, gay male, is very gender nonconforming. So he wears heels, he wears dresses, he wears makeup, the whole shebang. So upon leaving the club, we have a great time, no issues inside the club, but we leave the club and we're immediately followed out by 3 males. They walk up to us and they let it be known that to them, our behavior was unacceptable, and the verbal altercation turns very physical. So we're outside of this club in East Atlanta, a Black cisgender gay male and a Black cisgender gay male who's gender nonconforming are in a full 45-minute brawl outside of the club. The bouncer does nothing, none of the bystanders intervene, and to be quite frank, we both were fearing for our lives. I had a lot to lose. I don't know these people. I don't know what they had to lose. So I'm not saying this. I'm not saying to be the best ally that you need to go dress up and put on a mask and play vigilante and prevent gay bashing. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I am saying 2 things. In this particular situation, I wish someone would have intervened and had helped us. Thankfully, we're both still here alive and healthy today. And the other thing I'll say, and this goes to the intersectionality piece of this panel, is that in this situation, the assailants were 3 Black guys. So until we talk about or share the stories of Black, queer, gay, lesbians, transgender, gender nonconforming people, then all Black lives simply cannot matter, because Black LGBTQ+ lives, they matter too.
Thank you, Shannon, for sharing, and Riker and Talia. So myself, I'm talking more about when I had wished I had support. I remember when I was first kind of figuring out my sexuality when I was in high school. This is during the time of MySpace and Facebook, and I was really lucky to see a lot of people owning their sexuality on time, so I felt like I could too. And it was during a lunch hour during high school where a classmate yelled across the hall, "Olivia, aren't you bisexual?" Now, first of all, when you're having someone out you on your sexuality, it's already hard enough, especially when you don't quite understand it yourself and you're still trying to figure it out. But I went to a Catholic school, and the rumor was that they would expel you if you're identified as homosexual in any way. And I hadn't come out to my parents, and I wasn't really sure how to. So I had to very quickly and nonchalantly tell my classmate I had no idea what she was talking about. But due to this, I was then a focus for my school nun and my theology teachers about how to have the proper type of relationship in the eyes of God. And I actually lost a lot of friends that day because no one wanted to be associated with someone who may be a little bit different. And I didn't have anyone to talk to because I had high school friends and my parents didn't quite know. So I was in a really bad place. And I just really wish I had someone stand up for me and maybe not feel as much of an outsider as I did that day. But I am very lucky. Later on that year, I came out to my art teacher, and to this day, she is still one of my strongest allies, and she reaches out to me every once in a while. So shout out to teachers. And it's been, 15, almost 16 years. So that long-term allyship has really helped me as an adult. And I really want to shout out for anyone who does that to her friends. Like, you are people who make us feel comfortable in our own shoes.
Well, thank you everyone for these really powerful personal stories, and that's obviously why we're doing what we're doing here. The power of someone's own story is really something else. So we started out by talking about the value of allyship and the examples of where you wish you had it or where you actually had it. The topic of this panel is intersectionality. So as members of the LGBTQIA+ community, how can you all be better allies to other marginalized groups?
I'll start this one off. So as an ally, for everyone on the call that may not know LGBTQIA, the A is for ally. So starting with this community that we're talking about, I always say be gracious, and that means abandoning the assumption or the fear that someone who doesn't identify as heterosexual is automatically going to be attracted to you. So right, that's like one big thing we need to really, we let that down. It's very humbling, but they're not all attracted to you. But the other thing is like to be mindful. So from the military perspective, I've always said that the military is one of the most diverse employers. So to me, in my mind, allyship should just come naturally, one would think. But unfortunately, as I explained earlier, there's this really deep-rooted culture that still exists in the military, that it's for tough guys only. And we forget that someone may join the military one way and may leave another way. What I say by that is, like, they may join the military perfectly able and fine, and they may leave with a disability. So this is now putting them into another marginalized community that's brand new to them. There are women that serve in the military, and we can't forget about them, right? They're on the front lines of combat as well. And for the trans community, you know, there are still a small group of transgender troops who came out before that ban was lifted. So there was the lift in 2016, and they weren't immediately discharged, right? So they're still there fighting, and they're being forced to serve under this cloud of stigma. So, you know, there's a lot of intersectionality from the military perspective. I think from being an ally to all, first we have to educate ourselves. And I think you're going to hear this maybe from all of us on this discussion today, but don't expect the members of said communities to do the heavy lifting for you. If you truly want to be an ally, the work is hard. It requires a lot of effort. It requires emotions. So just keep that into consideration. And then the last thing I'm going to leave you guys with is to take a back seat, right? And what I mean by that is, after you've educated yourself, like, make time and make room to listen and learn. We need to make space for these communities, and don't take that space away. If you want to be an ally, like, sit back, embrace it, watch the community, join, ask questions, celebrate, and think about the things that, you know, tie you all together. If I think, you know, I'm gonna bring it back to the military, but if everyone comes in with from all different groups and all different facets, they still have one thing that ties them together, and that's the military. So you can't forget about that piece either. You're always going to have a connection. So that's my piece on being a better ally.
Thank you, Talia. So for me, my big thing is educate yourself, but also please don't be afraid to listen, ask questions. But lastly, support your friends in the community. Like, support us. That's all we really want. So I pride myself in being an open book. But at the same time, I also admit that I have a lot to learn about my community. And I will always be unafraid to ask questions, because that's how we learn from each other. I actually had a conversation with a coworker today who saw our panel on Tuesday, and he was like, you know what? I think I understand what it means to be an ally. And that's exactly it. They understood because they asked questions, and that meant a lot to me. So I would also say, be open to educating yourself. Like, we all have, or make moves to do so. There's so many ways to learn about the community. We have Netflix shows, books, we also have TED Talks, and we have the internet. And we're all subscribers to at least something. So educate yourself, find something you're passionate about already, and look into it just in a different light. And then lastly, support your friends. Don't out us. We're perfectly happy doing it ourselves when we are ready. I know I don't typically talk about my sexuality until I'm comfortable with someone. And this is based on my poor experiences coming out in both my own community and also with my peers and family. So it's really nice to have someone stand up for me when it comes to someone saying something closed-minded. I just like to know I have an ally. But I will say, I'm very, very lucky here in my office in London, because I know that I am surrounded by those who I can call my allies, and they are a great support system for me here.
Thank you, Talia. Thank you, Olivia. It's kind of nice that all of our answers seem to be in unison right here. I promise I didn't take away from you all in the notes. But ways in which we can be better allies to other marginalized groups, I see it three ways, or three ways in which we can do that. That's listening, that's learning, and that's activating. The best way to learn anything is to listen. So listen to what the people of these communities are saying. Digest that information, and most importantly, withhold your opinion. It's not about you. The best way to humanize people of any marginalized community is to listen and internalize what they're actually saying. The second point being to learn. In addition to listening and learning their stories, their struggles, their victories, and simply their point of views, do the actual research on your own. I think they've all said it before, Google, Netflix shows. If you truly want to be an ally, do that heavy lifting like Talia said. We know you can. A perfect example would be after watching Tiger King. I'm sure all of us ran to Google and researched, did Carol Baskins actually kill her husband? So we should all take that same kind of zest to learning how to be the best allies we possibly can to any other marginalized groups. And that third point being to activate. whether that means for you marching, donating, protesting, whatever it means for you, just do something.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a lot of the same sentiments here, but I think my first one would be speaking up. We all are sitting here together today on this Zoom, learning, talking about personal experiences. Everybody on this Zoom has learned something today. So don't be afraid to speak up when you hear hate speech or you feel something that you know is not right anymore. That can be something as simple as saying, hey, you know what, like, I'm not really comfortable with how this conversation's going. I'd like it to stop. Just shut it down, and that's okay. It's okay to be known as the person as like, hey, Riker isn't cool with those types of conversations. They won't happen around him. And as more people do that, it starts to eliminate that, right? So speaking up. Next for me would be, again, continue to educate. Do your own research, but also seek out conversations with people who are different than you. Having the lens of in a group and looking around and going, hey, who's missing right now? What identity is missing? Oh, it's because I don't associate a lot with that type of person, right? With that identity. Seek out those conversations. That comes with a caveat though. The caveat is seek permission to have that conversation. If we've learned anything through the Black Lives Matter movement, it should be also that our Black folks are tired. Seek permission to have that conversation and make sure that they feel ready to talk to you. Don't take it personal when you're being an ally. If someone's like, hey, I just don't have it today to talk about this. It's their safety, it's their personal space, and they'll probably come back to you and talk to you when they feel ready. The other thing that I would say is make sure that you're really listening. If you're going to seek out conversations, really take the time to listen. And why I say that is not only is that how you learn, but also this might be the very first time that somebody who's a part of this marginalized group has ever had somebody in a position of power actually ask them, how does it feel to be you? And they want to be heard when they're finally having that opportunity to share it. So really, really listen. And if you don't have the ability to listen right now, lean back on the self-education until you're ready to really listen to the person. And then my biggest one is thank people. We all know how hard it is to be vulnerable and to share intimate things about ourselves, specifically when we're talking about our race identities, our sexual identities, our gender identities. These are very personal body things. And it is really important to make sure that we say, thank you for sharing that with me. I learned a lot from you today.
Okay, we are right at 11 o'clock. And so what we're gonna do now is open it up to Q&A for about 20 minutes before we go to a wrap up. If you click on the Q&A link at the bottom, you can ask questions, you can vote up other ones. The first one is from Kendra, not a question, but thank you for that comment, Riker. No matter the repercussions, no matter who stands with you, be authentically you, one of the most revolutionary acts being you. I don't know if you want to comment at all, but that's a nice comment there. I'm going to jump ahead to, oh, we got another, not a question, but I'd like to say you were all absolutely amazing. We're going to probably have a lot of that. From Casey, can you share the name of the allyship organization you shared, Talia? I heard it, but I heard it quickly.
Yep, so it's Sparta, and that is I can type it into the chat for everyone, but it's SPART*A. So I'll put it in the chat for everyone as well.
Okay, the next one is also from Kendra. For Talia, what can we do? I feel for members of the LGBTQ+ community who have served. We have these amazing IRGs that Indeed. How can we partner to improve the experience for the individuals who identify with both of these groups?
So that's a fantastic question. I think what we can start to do is really, again, just show up and listen. There's a lot of grassroots organizations right now, Kendra, that we can do work with and that we can support. And it starts small, right? So a lot of the change and a lot of allyship is going to start small, as I explained this. The culture is deep rooted, but if we, work towards it and we work together, I think we can, impact, I always say, even if you impact one person, that's one person who is feeling so much better. So really open to any sort of collaboration that we can do in the future.
All right, the next question is from Jossie. How can people with privilege empathize with members of the LGBTQIA+ community? Do you feel like the less privilege you have, the more you can be an ally? That's for anyone.
I can take that one. I would say actually it's the opposite. The more privilege you have actually is the space that you live in order to be a better ally. If you are sitting in a point of privilege, for using my own experience as a white male passing individual, that means that I'm sitting at the table already, right? And how am I bringing those people to the table with me? I used an example earlier of saying that, you know, looking around the room and looking at who's missing, what identities are not mine that is missing in this juncture, looking for those and inviting them into the conversation. It can be something as simple as maybe I'm standing there with two other individuals. I'm the only trans person. The conversation starts to talk about trans identities. Well, the person next to me, I would hope, would turn to me and say, hey, and if I'm out, obviously, but would turn to me and say, hey, Riker, are you comfortable answering this question? And elevating my voice, right? Because I'm the one that's the marginalized group and should be heard in that conversation.
That's a great answer. Thank you. From Anna, as a member of the LGBTQIA community who works in sales here at Indeed, I sometimes feel my colleagues or directors do not make an effort to celebrate diversity and acknowledge it. Especially right now during Pride Month and everything going on with the BLM movement, how can I express that concern of the lack of acknowledgement and want for my peers and colleagues to become allies and even just show that they see those of us who are a part of an oppressed group?
I can start to attempt to answer that or just share my story based on that experience. I've been here at Indeed for 2.5 years. And in the first 2 months at the company, I shared with a director level individual, kind of jokingly at a bar, that I keep ending up at companies where I look around the table and I'm the only Black person. And that individual's response was so. And that hurt because it just dismissed my feeling of being othered in an organization. On the flip side, Anna, it did, along with not seeing many openly gay people, that those two components, it kind of triggered something in me to want to be an activist and want to be an advocate, because I didn't want anyone else behind me to come into Indeed and say, this is not a safe space for the LGBTQ+ community or for people of color at that point. We are aware of the frozen middle here at Indeed, and it's something that we are talking about openly all the time. But my challenge or my recommendation to you would be to take that kind of energy and frustration and be that change you want to see at the company.
I'm going to tag on a little here to Shannon's comment. I think, you know, what we can do is, especially as an ally, I brought up before, like having that uncomfortable conversation. If you don't feel in your gut that something is right or something doesn't sit okay with you, don't ever be afraid to speak up. I have gone to HR asking them why there are not more Black people on my team, especially if I am someone who is continually referring Black people. What is wrong with my candidates? I've had these conversations. Please explain to me what is wrong with my candidates. Same thing, you know, we've done it with military candidates. What are they not expressing? What's wrong? So I think it's okay to have those conversations and bring it up and let them know that, you know, if it doesn't feel right with you, you shouldn't have to sit at work and not feel comfortable. So I just want to tag that on there too.
Great. The next question is from Kendra. For Shannon, I'm sorry you had that experience. It hurts me to hear because the assailants were individuals that should have supported you. How did that experience inform how you show allyship to individuals who look like you in corporate America? More specifically, how do you uplift Black women in the workplace?
Thank you for that question, Kendra. By being my authentic self and opening a door and having an open door policy for people that come into the organization. Being my authentic Black gay self at the New York City office sent a message or a signal out to everyone in the organization that I am authentically who I am. I won't change that no matter what. I feel supported by senior leadership, and I always have. By doing that, I've set the precedent for other people in the organization, whether they be Black women or not Black women, that being your authentic self is the best way to be an ally and to be an advocate for other marginalized groups or communities.
The next question is from Victor. Where do you find courage? Is there some particular event in your life that is a slow understanding of necessity of an action? I think anyone could take that one.
I'm happy to take it. So where do I find courage? I would say a lot of my courage comes from my family. I'm very lucky. I've had a very easy coming out experience with my parents. And whenever I feel like I'm having a hard time with people saying something negatively or things like that, I actually reach out to my mom. My mom's the first person I call or the first person I text. And I'm really lucky that I have that. I also have an incredible group of friends here in London, an incredible group of friends back in Scottsdale, where Riker is. And I have that support system is really where I get my courage when I struggle with someone, because, you know, best part about dating is it's, you have to come out to the people that you're dating. And whenever I get rejected because of that, it's kind of nice to have like your friends be your backbone. Well, you know what? You need to be yourself. So my courage comes from my friends and family. So thank you to my friends and family.
I want to take that as well, the courage question. A call back to Mazen's chat yesterday. Thank you so much, iPride and Mia, for putting that on. She mentioned that story about the chalk being thrown at her in the classroom and how she used that as her source of strength for never wanting to feel that way again. Where I personally find the courage is a combination of experiences, things being said to me, racial epithets, homophobic slurs, all of those negative feelings that I've had at some point in my life. I put them into a ball, and I never want the people behind me, the generation behind me that are upcoming, to ever have to feel that level of discomfort or like they don't belong, so that they never have to enter a space or a room and have to qualify themselves in, or they can enter boldly and authentically as themselves. That's how I find my courage.
I'll piggyback right off of you real quick, Shannon, because you went right into mine. But mine is totally my courage comes from youth with my identities, specifically my trans identity. It is incredibly empowering to have a young trans youth come up to you and tears in their eyes. I'm gonna cry even saying it, but looking at me and saying, hey, I can't believe I can be you someday. And being that visible person, when I talked about, you know, how I can hide behind my identities, is why I choose not to. Because youth and other people who are young and early on in their journey need to see me in order to get to where I am. And so my courage comes from the young ones.
Wow, thank you for that. So Katie had raised a question about the A in LGBTQIA being for asexual as opposed to ally. So if anyone wants to just address that.
I'll take that one. I said that comment. I think possibly historically the A could have been ally, and I did not want to disregard or, you know, not pay attention to anyone who identifies as asexual as either. I think in being an ally, this is a great example of sometimes we misstep, and sometimes, you know, it's all part of the education and the learning process. So Katie, thank you for raising that and correcting me. I learned something new again today. So I don't know if it's still interchangeably used. I'd love to have that conversation, but we did not want to leave anyone out.
Great. The next question is from Rachel. I might have missed this at some point, but does the team have any books to recommend? Fiction, nonfiction, memoir, anything? Thanks. Anyone like to step in with anything?
So actually right now I'm writing a list of podcasts, books, and shows for EMEA and the US. Thank you, VPN. So I can have access to see what they have access in the US and also in the EU. for movies on Netflix. It will be on Igloo, and I will be sending over to Shannon and to Ashante to post it. So you will have all of this shortly. I'm hoping to have it done by Monday, so fingers and toes crossed.
All right, anyone else want to add anything?
I would add that a fast, free way to learn a lot about gender. There's a documentary that was done about, I think it was in 2017 by National Geographic called Gender Revolution. You can actually find it on their website. It's free, it's about an hour and 30 minutes, but they talk all about the entire gender spectrum. They go into details. Katie Couric comes back to life for us, and she goes through the whole journey and learns all about gender. She steps in it, makes mistakes, learns through it. It's really helpful and very educational.
Not a book, but a great TV show, Pose on FX by Ryan Murphy. A bit melodramatic, but the message is not muddled at all. A great starting point for anyone who wants to know about the community a bit more.
That's great. All right, the next question is from Andrew. Being that I am LGBTQIA, I even find it difficult with all the terms that are used that individuals identify by. Is there any resource you'd like to recommend that we could check out to have these broken down to educate ourselves? For instance, I recently learned what a cis male is. And I'll just say that in the comments here, Elliot posted that there is a glossary on Igloo and posted the link to it. So that is there in the answers. If there's anything else anyone would like to add.
I'll simplify it, actually. Being outside of my work experience, I actually volunteer a lot with LGBT youth organizations in my area. And kids are imaginatory and really fun and awesome. And they come up with new terms all the time, right? So sometimes it's hard to even follow if, if they're like, I'm star gender. I'm like, I don't know what that is. And so there's a lot of that stuff that goes on where you're like, cool, let's do it. The easiest way to make it simple for you and to not make mistakes around people's gender identity or sexual orientation is literally to just ask. Say, hey, how do you identify? And just let them tell you. If you come across somebody where you're not sure their gender identity, right? Call them by their name. Just say, hey, Riker, how are you doing today? Oh, I was talking with Riker earlier, and he was saying that he went snowboarding this weekend, or they went snowboarding this weekend. Dude, they, see, I even did it. But they and using their name is usually the easiest way to just navigate the conversations.
All right. From Bradley. Hello, one of the objectives that we would like to see completed here is expanding the use of correct pronouns. Part of that effort is working to update our systems such as Zoom, Slack, Google, Salesforce, etc., to show pronouns without manual intervention. What are the roadblocks to accomplishing this from a technical standpoint? Additionally, what are we doing with vendors like Insights to enforce recognizing people that do not use she, her, or he, him pronouns? And there's a comment that says connect with IT. I don't know if anyone else has been working on this or talked to folks about it that has any more insight.
I'm not the IT specialist, but I do know, being very close to the DI&B team, it is a conversation that is being had at a very high level and something that we're looking at from a company. Chris, I don't know if you know anything about it or if anyone else on the call is at that conversation, but it is part of the conversation right now.
Yeah, I haven't personally. I think it's probably a great one that we can follow up on. I know that just looking literally in the last couple of weeks to change mine on Zoom, that there was a whole thread online where it's actually a custom field that you have to have a business account to even add. So on our instance of Zoom, it has been set up so you can enter your gender pronouns, but they don't automatically show up in your name. So you need to also go in and change your name in your profile. But there's a whole discussion about that. And my guess is that a lot of systems that have not ever thought about that are starting to think about it in a way that it might become easier. But thanks for bringing that up, Bradley. Laura Brady says, Olivia's mom is awesome. Sounds indisputable. Okay, we answered this one from Karen. Are there any microaggressions that you all feel comfortable calling out that well-meaning people might not hear when we use them? That's a stumper, apparently.
I have one, and I'll talk about Riker's experience because I do too love a hey girl. Everyone knows I love a hey girl. However, just when you first meet me, don't assume that we're at the space or we're in the place where you can just address me as hey girl. Get the buy-in from your LGBTQ plus friends to make sure that they're okay with that and that they're at a place where that's an acceptable form of communication, because I may not know you like that. We may not be there yet. So just ask for that permission, as Riker has said, or make sure you have that understanding. That's a microaggression that really gets to me.
I would say for myself, it's usually the microaggressions come out obviously once people know and find out that I'm transgender. So the really common ones are, I had no idea. Well, like, that's the point, you know, but I like to greet things with humor. I feel like it still sends the same message, but it also, you know, no one needs to feel uncomfortable. I get that the intent with that comment is like, oh, you're attractive or you look great kind of thing. But sometimes a better response to something like that would be, that's really cool. And just leave it at that, you know, like, that's really cool, or that makes me really happy for you. Just something like that. You don't have to comment on my passingness. So that's one that's really common. And then the other one I'll call out, just because it's really common also for trans individuals, is what was your name before? We call this dead naming, and that's because that person is no longer here. The person before you is the person you're talking to, and so just know that it would be like saying to somebody who went through an incredible like weight loss, right? And you say, "What did you look like before? Can you show me a picture?" You probably wouldn't ask that, right? It's the same concept.
That's great, thank you. Couple of shout outs from Mohammed. Just want to say kudos to all of you for your strength and openness. I've learned a lot today. I identify as straight, male, he, him, and I'm an ally. Thank you, Mohammed. And then also from Meg, you were all incredible, just dropping by to say thank you. And then Natalie has one addition. The employee development team is working with Insights to address the issue with pronouns. So somebody is on it for one small piece of the puzzle there. And then we have one more question here, and that's probably good timing wise. We're going to go back to a final round. From Casey, for those of us with friends or family in the military, how can we help encourage acceptance and welcoming of the LGBTQ+A community through them? How can we get those conversations in the military through our contacts there?
I'll take this one. I think that the best way we can do it is just, you're going to hear me talk about this a lot, but like starting small. So having the conversation just with that person, right? So I always have this conversation with my husband first. When you were in the military, X, Y, Z, whatever type of question it is. And I gauge where he's at. I gauge his feeling, his sentiment. What was it like? And I think, you know, for someone to truly want to be an ally, like they have to want it for themselves, right? It's the same reason, like if we want to change who we are, you can't change someone. So I always say we never want to force ourselves upon anyone. You can't do that. But I think what we can do is begin to have those conversations, see where their mind's at. So Casey, this is a great question. Our IRG is going to start doing a lot more work around this and begin to introduce the conversation around these topics. And you know, you have to remember, like, the culture is very deep rooted. So, and this is very still new history. So it's just things that we have to take, you know, small steps towards.
Great, thank you. Well, thanks everyone for the really thoughtful questions, and thanks for the panelists for the thinking on your feet and answering live. We're gonna close out with one more question. We'll go around again. And this is really about your role as an ally. So what has helped you to be a more effective ally? I think we heard a little bit about that from some of you. And or, you know, what advice would you have for others who want to advocate and don't know where to start?
So I'm going to go ahead and start. One thing that I have heard a lot is I'm not gay, so I can't be an ally. That's a myth. You don't have to be gay to be an ally. We just want you to be there for us. It's something that resonates with me strongly. All I can say is this. You may not necessarily identify as a woman, but if you stand up for gender equality, you're an ally. We are all supporters of Black Lives Matter, and you're an ally, even if you don't identify as Black. As an ally is someone who will stand up for others, no matter who may be different from themselves. We just want more people to be open. But for me, what has allowed me to be more of an effective ally is the fact that I am an intersectional person. I have many different facets to myself. And to me, that is beautiful and extraordinary. And I cherish all the different facets of other humans. It's what makes us unique. And I'm a better ally because I acknowledge my different privileges and my intersectional identities.
Thanks, Olivia. Yeah, I would say that for me, I became a better ally when I became aware of all of my identities and my points of privilege within my identities. If you think about it on a line, a grid line, every single identity has someone who is in the point of power and someone who is not. My example of this would be even within my own trans identity. Because of my intersectionalities and me understanding all of my identities, I know that my trans POC siblings are at an incredible disadvantage compared to my trans experience. Within that, it has allowed me the ability to advocate for them, to step in on situations where I need to be the person in the forefront because they're at a significant disadvantage even when it comes to physical safety. I share an example sometimes around this where I went on a camping trip with a bunch of transmasculine men, and as it usually rolls around with me, I was the only white guy, and I was hanging out with all of them. We ran out of ice. We were in a small little mountain town, predominantly white, as we saw when we drove in, and instead of any of my POC trans brothers going, I said, hey, you know what? I'll go get the ice just to keep them safe. And that is being an ally and an advocate, is putting yourself in the position where you have the safety in order to protect those folks.
Thank you, Olivia. Thank you, Riker. So what's helped me become a more effective ally and what advice would I give to others? Very simple thing, but it's learning the language. It's a great way to start any journey of knowledge, truth, and understanding. When I was a young gay boy, you were either gay or you were straight. Bisexual was a myth, and the word queer was offensive. Now there's a cornucopia of terms that I too have to learn every day. And then lastly, just be patient with yourself. We're all human, nothing is learned, and no one changes overnight.
Thanks, Shannon. Thanks, everyone. So I've said this a lot, but I think it's okay to start small. So I talk about this with Shannon and Ashante a lot, and I say allyship is a journey, right? So we're all co-chairs of our IRGs, and maybe it's just someone wearing a pin or just putting a sticker on their computer. That's a form of allyship that, you know, they're beginning their journey on. So we have to accept that as well. From the military side, like I said, laws and policies have changed, but the culture takes a really long time to change, right? So this is very new history. It hasn't even been 10 years yet when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was lifted, and we've seen what's happened in the transgender community, right? So laws are being put back into place. So I think, you know, we have to look at the small wins. I'll say, you know, the Pentagon was due to celebrate and march in their 9th Pride Parade this year. So like, that's like a huge accomplishment. I think in terms of being an effective ally, I've learned so much while being at Indeed. I now have a first cousin, and he is transitioning right now. And so everything that I've learned from all of you, I've been able to share with my family. And sometimes, you know, I misstepped earlier and my family missteps. And I think it's something that we all have to learn together and embrace. But I think I'm grateful for this community here because I have learned so much and I'm able to pass that on. So to me, that's being an effective ally. And I always say, think of it like the ocean tide, right? It takes a really long time for the tides to kind of change, but the impact that it leaves is huge and it's vital. So I'm going to leave us with that one.
Well, I'm sorry we're at the end of our time because I could really listen to all of you talk all day. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining today, but really special thanks to Talia, Olivia, Shannon, and Riker. You know, we throw around this phrase all the time about being your authentic self. If you want to know what this is what that looks like, what you just heard for the last hour. So thanks to all of you for bringing your authentic selves today. Before we wrap up, we are coming to the end of our Pride Month celebration here at Indeed, and tomorrow we have our big send-off celebration that was organized by Shannon. It's from 5:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and it will be over Zoom and available to everyone everywhere around the world who wants to join. I have been assured that it is totally kid-friendly, so bring your whole families. There'll be music. We have DJs from all over Indeed, and it's going to be a really amazing celebration to cap off this month. So I just want to say in closing that I have learned so much in my time at Indeed from just being a part of these conversations. And there are some communities that we become allies for because we're thrust into that because, as Talia said, maybe someone in your family comes out or you become friends with someone that's got a different experience for you. But we really have an amazing opportunity here with the IRGs and with the diversity that we have at Indeed to actually go seek it out. And my own journey to becoming a better ally, the most important thing for me is just understanding that you have to be willing to be uncomfortable. A lot of these issues are uncomfortable for people who've never been exposed to them. And it's human nature, right? We all love things to be the same. People don't like change. We like to know that our view of the world is complete and total, and it's nice and warm and cozy, and we can wrap it around us like a blanket. But when I think about the ideas that are the most important to me in my life, these are all things that at one point I was completely blind to. I knew nothing about. And being an ally and understanding privilege, you know, Riker talked about this a little bit, but during the panel last week with the Gender Cool organization, which was just amazing. For me, hearing this 14-year-old boy, Daniel, who is a 14-year-old trans boy who, you know, I can't imagine what the experience of that would be like, to have him start out by checking his privilege as a male passing white man. Is just really humbling. And so this idea of being an ally and understanding privilege, there's so many layers. And the more that I understand, the more that I want to learn. So Pride Month is a time for reflection along with celebration. Hopefully this has given everyone something to reflect on. I know I've gotten a lot out of the last hour, and I'm pretty sure everyone else has. And, you know, I'll just close by saying, you know, you've probably heard this before. The best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The next best time is today. None of the stuff we're talking about here are new issues, but the world today, right now, with everything that's going on, is in a very special place. And there's a lot more openness, it feels like, than we've had at any time in the past. So we can all start doing something today to be a better ally and to help build a more inclusive future. So thanks to all of you for listening. Thanks to the panelists for joining, and I just loved being here with you. Take care.